Warning: the following program is intended to be entertaining and contains videos and images from the internet. We do not condone the stupidity portrayed and discourage anyone from attempting or repeating them. It also contains a lot of facts and figures that may be entirely made up on the spot. Do not rely on anything this man says and do your own research. The views expressed are by no means the views of the hosting platform or station, and any information contained should not be relied on or taken seriously by anyone. I want to make this clear from the beginning. I am not seeking new business. I own an entertainment company. What follows is not legal advice or me trying to find new clients. It's pure information based on years of experience that you might be able to use. Getting older is hopefully inevitable, barring a catastrophic occurrence, but the human body and brain can only take so much, and sometimes we need help in advanced old age. Or worse, our bodies or minds have failed at a younger age, and despite our desire for independence, there are just some things we can't do on our own.
But the Free Britney movement is certainly making people more aware of what a conservatorship is, conservatorship abuse, and laws. The movement all started because of Britney fans. They made everyone aware of the conservatorship. And to the Britney fans who started the movement and really helped to expand it, if you don't know what a conservatorship is, by definition, it is a legal agreement in the United States where a guardian or protector is appointed by a judge to manage the financial affairs or daily life of another due to physical or mental limitations or old age. A person under a conservatorship is called a conservatee.
You may find yourself in the position as a relative or a friend or third-party professional, suddenly in the role of taking care of that person and their financial or medical decisions. And that can be an overwhelming task, particularly when the person you have to take care of suffers from issues stemming from mental health, addiction, or both. There are a number of terms for it: power of attorney, representative payee, guardian, conservator of person and estate, but they all come out to be the same thing. Someone is put in control of the financial and or medical decision making for another person. For the sake of clarity, I'll be referring to all of these by the general term conservator. People who need help come in all shapes, sizes, and situations. It could be a parent preparing to go to a nursing home for long-term care, an uncle who's been homeless for years who needs assistance, a dual-diagnosed individual who has been deemed incompetent by a court, a person abandoned by family and stuck in a mental hospital, unable to discharge because there is no one to help them coordinate services and housing in the community. In this video, I will assume you are imminent to be appointed as a conservator and won't go over those steps. That's a complicated process and varies not only from state to state, but county and parish as well. We're going to start by looking at the initial basic steps you as a conservator must take to protect the person in your care and assume responsibility for their financial and medical decision making. Next, we'll look at planning for the future and what you need to do to assist them in moving forward. Finally, I'll present some examples from different cases to demonstrate how a conservator helps and what can go dramatically wrong. To start, there is a difference between a power of attorney, which is a document you can do out of your trunk in a dark alley at 2 a.m., and if it sounds shady, that's why no one trusts it, and a conservator who is appointed with court orders and a judge to oversee what is going on. A power of attorney between two people gives equal rights to each of them and is outlined in the power of attorney. For instance, someone deploying to a combat situation will typically name a power of attorney to help take care of things back home, but they don't give away their rights to do the same thing. It's an additional person to help. A conservator is given authority over the conserved person and can make decisions that override or outright ignore their wishes. The conserved individual, if they don't like what's going on, can, of course, always go back to court to contest anything they don't like or approve. This is why it is incredibly important that courts be involved in the appointment and oversight of conservators. I will not be talking about powers of attorney. I'll be addressing appointed conservators subject to court orders and court oversight. It is also very important that you think of the conserved person as a client. This is, after all, a professional relationship, even if it is a parent or a sibling. This helps to maintain a bit of distance and perspective, particularly when making medical decisions. Quick note, I do work in the state of Connecticut, there may be rules, laws, regulations, or statutes in place that prevent you from approaching it the way that I do. This is designed to give you a general oversight and understanding of the roles, issues, problems, and resources available to you. Once again, this is not legal advice, simply practical advice. Always request legal advice from an attorney licensed to practice in your jurisdiction. All right, so you've been appointed by a court or authority as a conservator, and you are now in charge of your client. What the heck do you do first? Well, let's start with financial matters. First, you need to open a brand new bank account and close theirs. Do not add their funds to your account. This is known as commingling, and do not let them keep their own accounts. The first, commingling, leads to accusations of embezzlement that you have to waste time defending. And the second could lead to funds disappearing when the client finds a checkbook or a bank card lying around and drains their account. You will have to answer why checks for rent and utilities are suddenly bouncing sky high, and you are the responsible one. I recommend you open a new account through a credit union, since it requires a minimum amount of funding that you can do from your own pocket, in my case $5 to open a new account. In addition, because I use a credit union, I can get a debit card for the checking account and an ATM card for the savings account. This is critical, particularly with homeless clients who don't have photo IDs to cash checks. In addition, there's a convenience and independence of being able to get money when needed and not have to wait for a check to arrive in the mail days after the cash was necessary. The debit card is good because purchases can be made with the debit card to go directly to the account, and there's no reimbursements, no commingling. How the account is named, particularly when Social Security is involved, is very important. The Social Security Administration requires that representative payee accounts be named either Michael Fryar, representative payee for John Doe, or John Doe by Michael Fryar, representative payee. Screwing this up will lead to complications down the road every year when Social Security audits you as a representative payee, and you get audited by Social Security every year. Once the bank account is established, then you can pursue funds for the client. Social Security, wages, retirement, whatever it is will require appropriate court documentation showing your authority and the bank account information for direct deposits. So now you have a bank account and you have applied to whatever sources to receive income. Now let's protect that income by registering for benefits. Benefits do include health insurance. I know I said financial first, but insurance, including health, counts as a financial benefit. One caveat to benefits. If your client is applying for Medicaid for long-term care and is in need of a spend down, you need to seek legal, tax, and accounting advice. For perspective, I don't do this work any longer because it just became too complex. When I did it, my minimum to engage in a Medicaid spend down was $10,000, with the idea it would increase due to complexity. Right now, someone could walk into my office with $25,000 in cash to do a Medicaid application with a spend down, and I would throw them out. You've been warned. It's complex. All right, you have a bank account. You're receiving their income. You're not on a spend down. Now the fun begins. Most of my clients qualify for Social Security income as disabled without enough employed quarters, and so receive Social Security disability from the non-working side of Social Security. So along with Social Security income, they also receive Medicare health insurance. Medicare is the federal health insurance program and pays for Part A, hospital stays, and Part B, doctor's visits and outpatient care. Medicare moved from Social Security numbers as identifiers to unique alphanumeric codes to fight fraud. After you register for Social Security, a new Medicare card will be generated and issued to you at your address for your client. Make copies of the card, or ideally scan it into a computer. You will need this number as much, if not more, than your client's Social Security number. Medicare Part C is Medicare Advantage plans. The federal government does not want to be in the insurance business and pays private insurance companies to cover Medicare recipients. There are brokers in each state that will help you to pick the right Medicare Advantage plan for your client, and quite frankly, The Advantage plans usually have a bigger network of doctors and more comprehensive benefits. Some plans do have an additional charge, so you need to budget for this. Part D is prescription plans, and you will need to make sure the client is enrolled by talking to Medicare directly. Now, Social Security and Medicare do not share a database, so despite you being a representative payee with Social Security, and despite Medicare having your address from Social Security, they will not have you in the system as a conservator, and you will need to submit your court paperwork to them directly. If your client has private insurance through work or retirement, you need to make sure that the appropriate documents are filed with that insurance company. Your address is registered with them, premiums are paid, and the doctors they go to accept that insurance. Your insurance journey is not over, though. Whether your client receives Medicaid or not, you will need to apply for it to register yourself with the state as the conservator. Medicaid is the state medical insurance program and differs in benefits from state to state. It is supplementary to Medicare, and it is critical for a number of reasons. Depending on your client's income level, this can mean no copays for prescriptions or medical visits, increased coverage for some over-the-counter items, or benefits when Medicare runs out or no longer provides coverage. All of these benefits keep money in the pocket of your client, who most likely has a very limited or set income. Every dollar you can save will help when you need to provide food and clothing. The second application you need to make under Medicaid is for the Qualified Medicare Bridge, or QMB. There is a cost for Medicare, currently $135 a month. Qualified Medicare Bridge pays that monthly fee for the beneficiary. The state will pay the Medicare monthly payment for your client, saving them $135 and providing you more income to spend on them. Please keep in mind that Medicaid health insurance and QMB can be two separate applications and may need to be submitted individually. Next, you'll need to do additional applications for any other benefits your client may qualify for, such as food stamps, cash assistance, housing, or other benefits your state may offer. The one constant is the annual renewal for benefits. So make sure you include your address as the mailing address, so you're not chasing applications around because a benefit failed and now you have to reapply. All right, so we have a bank account. We have our client's income. We've applied for benefits and have the maximum amount of money each month to house, clothe, and feed our clients. So let's start with our budget. How much do we have to work with? With a rare exception, my clients receive the minimum Social Security benefit, which is $791 a month. That's it, a month, not a week, a month. And you thought minimum wage was bad. The first major bill is housing, and is going to be tough on $791 a month. I budget $500 a month for rent and utilities for my clients, and they won't have enough for food and clothing. If you're fortunate, your client will be either residing in or eligible for housing units specifically designed for elderly and disabled. These are rent-controlled apartments where the tenant pays a limited portion of rent, usually 1/3 of income. But they come with a large number of rules. The major one is no drugs or substances allowed, and dealing or using will result in an eviction and permanent ban from ever seeking housing again. When your clients are primarily dual-diagnosed mental health and addiction, they are not necessarily candidates for this type of housing. There are a number of other conditions and rules to seek and maintain elderly and disabled housing, and they are fairly rare and hard to come by. Usually, someone passes away or is evicted. But if your client is eligible, then it's worth getting clients on waiting lists as long as they meet the requirements. The second waiting list is for a Section 8 voucher. Named for Section 8 of the 1937 Housing Act, it's important to understand there is no such thing as Section 8 housing. Section 8 is a voucher. It is good in any housing up to and including actual houses. It is treated as income for qualifying purposes, and a landlord cannot turn down a potential tenant because they have a Section 8 voucher. Should your client be lucky enough to qualify for one and hold on to it, which is a separate issue, then you have a wider array of housing options. But the waiting list is long, and priority is given to parents with children in the household. but you should still absolutely register your client on it. Eviction for breaking the law, substance abuse, and other issues can result in losing the Section 8 voucher. And when you have dual diagnosed mental health and addiction clients, chances are they will not qualify for the voucher or may have lost one in the past, but you should still apply for it. So you have $500 a month for budget and are waiting on the possibility of housing services, but they need housing now. So what do? No matter where they end, you need something in writing for the state and federal agencies as proof of housing. The name of the landlord who is receiving the check, the amount of the rent, what is covered in the rent, food, utilities, heat, and hot water, address where the client will be living, and the address where the rent is sent if different. Any negotiation for housing has to start with this requirement, or you could cost your client benefits and income. But how do you find that housing? Start with the Community Mental Health Support Services. They've been doing it longer and more effectively than you have. Some community agencies have a housing coordinator that can do most of the groundwork for you. They have a network of low-income landlords and housing that they use for clients discharging from substance abuse treatment, medical and mental health hospitals, and prisons. If the community support services can't help, then the next best person is your client. They have most likely survived for a number of years without your help and have a good amount of resources. They probably know of some alternative housing placements. Examples I have been given, but I have no personal knowledge of, as I would never condone breaking the law. Well, the most common are clients who know other clients with Section 8 or supportive housing and move in with them. The landlord is paying a reduced rent through a benefit and then making a profit by charging your client to rent a room or a couch. Is it a violation of the terms of the benefit? That's not my client's benefit. It's not my client's problem. Remember, I have something in writing that says my client pays rent there. I have no knowledge of the living situation of the landlord or the renter, and neither should I. Their financial matters are none of my business. Making sure my client has a roof over their head and somewhere warm to sleep is. I have known people who have convinced housing agencies to increase vouchers from 1 to 2 bedrooms because a long-lost cousin or aunt has appeared and they need a bigger place to live. And the benefit agencies are very aware of the lack of housing and don't necessarily ask too many questions. Housing someone is far more important than enforcing some rules and regulations. To some. Another option is sober housing. These are private halfway houses that provide substance-free housing to individuals moving from rehab or who are seeking to beat addictions and don't want to be surrounded by other users. These are treated like hotel rooms in that they are furnished and the bed is rented, not the room, making evictions easier and with only short notice, just like hotel rooms. This is an issue because not all addicts are serious about their sobriety, and the whole point of a sober house is not to be around active addicts. There are illegal rooming houses in great numbers throughout urban and suburban areas. These are larger homes where the rooms are converted and rented out. Most likely cities have ordinances that make these illegal, but there's also a recognition in most communities that they are a necessity and the ordinances are not always enforced. In addition, homes, apartments, and other locations are around that will rent out rooms but don't advertise. These rooms are available through word of mouth only, and when you've developed a reputation as a conservator for paying bills and making sure checks are on time, you will find that these folks may reach out to you from time to time to let you know they have something available. Keep a list. Finally, get to know your community leaders, particularly directors and managers of homeless shelters. They have lists of resources that you can use to find shelter and housing for your clients. I have never failed to house a client on a $500 budget. And before you start yelling, it's only possible in some areas, I would agree, it's only possible in some neighborhoods. But every area has options. You don't work with, or you're not a member of the mentally ill active drug user community, and that's why you don't know what options are out there. You'll learn very quickly, even in some of the nicest neighborhoods, that there are options. There are addicts everywhere who sympathize, empathize, and are willing to help. For rent money, of course. All right, with your budget for rent and utilities, whatever that might be based on their income. This leaves funds left over for essentials. In the case of minimal Social Security income, that is $291 a month. Clients need to have spending money. First, it is their money, and your job is to pay their basic expenses. They deserve to have autonomy and access to their funds to spend as they see fit. Period. Remember the ATM card? I set up an auto transfer for every Monday of $40 to the savings account. This ensures that the client has spending money and is no more than 1 week from the next amount. This means they can budget. I do have clients that get $20 on Monday and $20 on Friday. That helps them to budget more efficiently. Also, when they sell the ATM card or give it to their dealer or trade it for something along with their food stamp card, you can just cancel it and get a new one issued. I use a credit union as there are no ATM fees as long as you use the credit union network. This gives client a far wider range of ATMs to use without a fee, and they don't need to hike a distance to use a specific bank ATM. So, $40 a week times 52 weeks divided by 12 months is $173. You now have $118 left out of that minimal Social Security budget. Clients with medical and mental health issues in the community will usually have a medication nurse and need a cell phone for communication. You need to apply immediately for a Lifeline cell phone to ensure they have some form of communication. They do have limited minutes, however, so chances are your client will be unhappy and probably want something with a web browser. For porn, most phone companies have a monthly plan for $50 a month, and clients like the access to texting, apps, entertainment, games, and porn. That leaves $68 each month out of that minimum budget. This is a bare minimum budget under Social Security's minimum payment. Depending on your budget is what your client may afford with housing and utilities. The maximum amount under Social Security currently is $3,895 for someone retiring at 70. Add on to that private retirement or other incomes, and your client may be quite comfortable with a condominium, home, or other housing and the utilities that go with it. And the remaining $68 should be saved at all costs. Your client's going to need new clothes, over-the-counter medications, debts paid to drug dealers or they'll be killed. This happens far more frequently than you think, and dealers find out they have a conservator. I'm convinced at this point that drug dealers are the number one force behind having conservators appointed, guaranteed to get their money. And other expenses that will pop up that will not take care of themselves because the client spends their weekly funds without saving. But savings becomes its own issue. If your client is receiving state Medicaid benefits, there is a cap amount they can have in assets before they lose Medicaid benefits. You need to be aware of this as it can directly impact their medical insurance and other benefits. The limit tends to range from $1,200 to $2,000, and you need to keep your client below it. $2,000 is usually the high end of the cap because Social Security does not allow you to have more than $2,000 in assets for clients who are receiving Social Security disability but who do not work enough quarters to qualify under the earned Social Security section. Unless your client earned enough quarters that they are receiving disability from earned income, you will always need to have less than $2,000 or your client's Social Security will be shut off until the assets are spent below that amount. Exceptions for assets can include a car, a home, and other items. You need to carefully review what is allowed or not under state and federal law so you don't risk losing benefits and subsequently costing your clients money every month from their limited income. And most importantly, be perfectly honest about what is happening. Never hide, deny, or lie about assets or information for your client. It is not worth it. All right, it's the end of week one. You are meeting their basic needs. They have a place to sleep, money in their pocket, health insurance for their needs, and a communication device with the internet at their fingertips. Congratulations. You are doing your bare minimum. Time to step it up a bit. You now have to set your client up for success. Your clients are community-based, probably impoverished, and very complicated. If your client suffers from mental health issues, addiction issues, or both, also known as dual diagnosis, your client will require much more intensive time and effort on your part. Your client needs community support services, including therapy, emotional supports, medical assistance, help with paperwork, both legal and applications, and other things to keep them as independent as possible, but without setting them up for failure. You are in charge of making sure that it is done well for them. It's not just about writing checks to pay bills and signing forms for medical care. You are their entire support system and need to treat them exactly as you would treat yourself. Better even. Funds are an issue, particularly with so little to work with at $791 a month. You're hard-pressed to find ways to keep them. Keep in mind, your client is probably supplementing their income without you. Panhandling is a common pastime. Addicts are incentivized to assist in the local drug trade. In exchange for substances, they may work as lookouts, runners, mules, or shoplift for items because drug dealers have a particularly sick sense of humor and like to come up with weird stuff for your clients to do. The phrase, "I'll give you $20 if you," will take on a new and horrifying meaning in your life. Get ready for 2 a.m. phone calls from police stations. Your clients can and are willing to work at a legal job. Yes, they are on 100% disability, earned because the government is convinced that they can't work at all, but the government also recognizes that trying to survive on $791 a month is insane. Your client can work with their local support agency to complete paperwork for the Ticket to Work program, but you'll need to keep track of pay stubs and submit them to Social Security so benefits can be adjusted appropriately. If you are fortunate, you now have a client who's receiving regular care in the community, has a part-time job, and is contributing, has some extra spending money, and is saving up for a few nice things in their life. They have moved to a point where they may even be independent of your services and no longer need you. This is not every client. You need to prepare for the other type of client. As a conservative person or medical decision making, you are about to be introduced to the world of mental health, medications, side effects, and behaviors associated with all three. If you do not have a mental health background, you're about to quickly acquire one, whether you have one client or 100. You will learn more about the medical and psychiatric field than you ever desired or had an interest. Worse, you're going to quickly find out that the field of mental health and addiction services has a spectacular fail rate. And it's all dependent on your client's interest or desire to improve, and if they decide not to participate, there is nothing under the sun or moon that will get them to move forward. You will find out that your client has handed over the ATM card at some point to the dealer and the cash is taken off to cover their drug debt. Immediately cancel that card and have a new one issued. And get ready for 1 or 2 a.m. phone calls from emergency rooms for permission to treat. Hospitals are a favorite haunt for homeless and mentally ill since they can get a bed and a free meal. The secret is getting enough alcohol into your system so that a blood draw on admission shows they are too intoxicated to discharge. That involves consuming a large amount of cheap booze right outside the emergency room entrance. Some clients have discovered that if you drink hand sanitizer, it works too. And thanks to COVID, is widely available for free. My favorite phone calls are for mental health professionals who have degrees and years of experience, who contact me and ask for advice on doing their job. I'm not a mental health professional. I put my faith in their education and experience. It was shocking to learn how little they actually know or can do with a client. So you learn everything you can about the human being you are now tasked with caring for. You learn how to encourage, cajole, and motivate them. You learn to set very small achievable goals and celebrate them. And you learn to not take it personally when they fail because it's not about you. And you remember that you are doing good just finding them that next housing, getting them to the next appointment on Monday, and figuring out how to motivate them to not use substances tomorrow. And then doing it all over again next week, because without you, they would probably be dead multiple times over. And that's the most satisfying thing you will ever feel. Another human being is surviving because you care.
Warning: the following program is intended to be entertaining and contains videos and images from the internet. We do not condone the stupidity portrayed and discourage anyone from attempting or repeating them. It also contains a lot of facts and figures that may be entirely made up on the spot. Do not rely on anything this man says and do your own research. The views expressed are by no means the views of the hosting platform or station, and any information contained should not be relied on or taken seriously by anyone.